disconnection, and yet you organized to fight the drugs and violence. So explain the orange hats concept.
Well, you know, Dean had been doing this before. He was one of our taught us how to do it. We put on a bright orange hat, you know, like the hunters wear.
Correct.
Because you can see it such a long distance. And we get together. We got together first night. What were there, 5 of us out?
5 of us out.
And we decided if the drug dealers could stand on the corner, we could too.
We could too.
And I tell you, we were knock-kneed the first night. Margaret was there. We were all together, and we walked up there, and it was an amazing thing. We walked up, and it's like a human vacuum cleaner sucked the drug dealers off the street.
They certainly did. They just disappeared.
Was there a conversation, a confrontation?
We don't confront them. What we do is we write down license plate numbers. We take video. We drive away their customers. And when you drive away their customers, they have no reason to remain.
Positive moral space displaces negative moral space. That's what we discovered.
So in essence, you're saying that the very presence of people affirming themselves with their orange hats and their videos,
that's right,
tends to drive the market.
I had a guy walk up to me and he said, he looked me in the face and he said, I'm on the wrong side of the law, but I understand what you're saying. I won't be back to this neighborhood.
I remember that. And he said, you could be my mother or my father or my sister, and I respect you for being out here. And he turned around and he walked away from that corner.
Assuming that some of them are not on corners, that they're in houses, you even identified houses where the drug dealing was taking place. How did you identify the houses, Margaret?
Well, it's not very difficult to identify once you start paying attention, and I think what happened to us more than anything else was we began to really be paying attention to what was going on in our neighborhood. We began to watch that certain houses had an unusual amount of traffic, people coming and going at strange hours, cars parked in front of the house that would stay 5 minutes and then leave, particularly cars with out-of-town license plates or with temporary tags. That's a big giveaway. About half the cars that come in and out to engage in this kind of activity are driven by people with temporary tags. I'm not sure why, but it's a real giveaway.
Did you knock on their doors?
No, we never knocked on doors. Our desire was not to be, as Mr. Burrell said, to be confrontational. But we just observed, we took notes, and people would come to us. After they began to understand who we are and what we were trying to do, they would come and tell us what was going on and what they had seen.
Well, then we called in the Air Force, though. And that is, we got some lawyers to agree to write a letter for us to the owner of the property and say, either you will get rid of the drug dealing in your property, or we will take this information to the federal government and get the property seized. And we got a newspaper article about property being seized by the federal government, mailed it to the owner, and 6 weeks later, the drug dealers were evicted.
So in addition to the orange hats and walking, you also took legal action.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Not only against the houses, but against some of the commercial establishments that were harboring that. And
what was the outcome?
Well,
Gene has done more of that than anyone, I think.
Yeah, I've done about half a dozen liquor license proceedings in this area. And basically what you do with certain businesses, you shut down. Certain businesses, you work with them and teach them how to adopt certain techniques that stop the dealers from hanging around.
And then we went one step further. Dean's a lawyer, and he did a lot of work, but when you get the bigger organization, we got the largest law firm in Washington called Covington and Burling. You know them well. And they represented this community group against the most notorious drug establishment, a bar called the Hummingbird. And eventually, it took over a year of legal proceedings. Their liquor license was taken away, and the gunfire has stopped that used to come out of that establishment.
But aren't you afraid of the retaliations? As we challenge neighbors and students across the country, it's the big issue of fear. Did you not fear retaliation?
Sure, that was a fear. It certainly was.
Of one person, or one person is afraid, but they're not going to go after everybody. If you come out there with 20, 30, 40, 50 people, they don't know who to target.
And the most important thing that happened here was that we found each other. And that by finding each other, we were not alone standing against that drug dealer, but we were a community standing against the drug dealer.
But you have an interesting situation here where you have white people going to black people's houses who are dealing in drugs, or blacks going to white houses who are dealing in drugs. And this is a very lucrative, gone-in-force trade in neighborhoods across the country.
Yes, it is.
The Orange Hat team, how do you reinforce each other, to give each other the security that you need, the sense of security that you need?
We do that very simply. We trust each other. We take value in our community. We love this place. And we know that we have no place else to go. We don't want to leave. So with that type of investment, we work very hard to ensure that this neighborhood remains safe.
Are you here by choice? I mean, do you really have other options?
Sure, there are other options.
Like what's the value of your houses? You're a kind of basic working class neighborhood.
A lot, I hope.
Mine's is worth a bit too.
Yeah. These houses are $100,000 to $200,000 houses?
Yes.
That's my appraisal. My appraisal is higher than that.
But then of course the trafficking of drugs and guns tend to drive neighborhood value down.
Sure.
What's important here is that we're not in the ghetto, okay? We're all professionals. Most of the individuals in this community, especially the younger ones, are professionals. This area is unique in that it is one of the more integrated communities in the district. Okay, Shepherd Park, Tacoma, this area.
But it's still crime-ridden. You know, whether public housing or single-family dwelling, the bottom line is the same.
No difference. But you know, the trust issue, I tell you the key thing, it was time together and contact. Going out and walking on the street, we did it, Alpha and I were together every night, 5 nights a week, sometimes 6 nights a week for 3 months. And you know what? The first night we were sort of stiff.
Yes, we were.
And the second night, we were sort of stiff. I mean, I didn't know this guy, right? He may be the drug dealer for all I know, right?
That's right. That's right.
And but, you know, after 5 nights, 1 for 3 weeks, you know, pretty soon you're talking about kids and wives.
You watch these people in action. We watch each other in action, and you see who is there when you need them, who is available to participate in what activities, who takes the stands, who does the legwork, who does the scut work trying to put together, and you begin to say, these people care about this community, they're invested in it, and you trust them.
What you're really showing is that when people stand up and fight back, you kind of take back your space. What's phenomenal about this is that people are coming together at the time when people are going apart. They're coming together across racial lines in the times of racial polarization. And so you're fighting the polarization, the coalition, and you're fighting the fear with hope.
See,
We'll be back in a moment to talk more about families coming together, taking their neighborhoods back. We'll be right back.
Before nightfall, 40,000 children will die from hunger and disease. 55 will die before I finish talking.
They're dying because to most of us, they're nameless, faceless masses, too numerous to help. But they each have a name and they can be helped, one by one. If you can set aside 70 cents a day, $21 a month, then please call this number and sponsor a child like Maria. Maria might be a statistic now, if it weren't for Angela Toth, a homemaker from Michigan.
Before Angela sponsored Maria through Christian Children's Fund, the situation was very bad. Maria and her mother were alone and frightened. Maria's father had been kidnapped. And with no source of income, it's pretty tough to get along in this part of the country. But Maria will, thanks to Angela. Now they share pictures, letters, their joys, sadness.
Thousands of children, just as precious as Maria, die every day. Not because people are heartless, but because we feel powerless. How many times have you heard child mortality statistics and thought, the problem's so big, what can I do? You can do plenty. You can pick up the phone and save one child. That's a great feeling. Meet Jose, sponsored by Scott Blevins, a Florida technician.
Jose is just getting over pneumonia, which is usually fatal here. You see, where Jose lives, there's no clean water, no medicine, nothing but poverty. But with Scott's $21 a month, Christian Children's Fund is able to give Jose good food, clean water, warm clothes, and the penicillin that saved his life. The only thing we can't save you from is your schoolwork. Christian Children's Fund can do a lot with your $21.
Remember, your phone call can make a wonderful difference in the life of a child.
The number for Christian Children's Fund is on your screen. Please call it.
We'll send you the name and photo of a child you can sponsor.
With the home of neighbors fighting together to take their communities back. We're at the home of attorney Roger Connor, his wife, economist Margaret Blair, Alpha McPherson is their neighbor. He is a computer specialist, and of course, Dean Burrell, a lawyer and another neighbor. What can other communities do around the country who have the same division, the same fears, the same overflow of drugs? What can they do to fight back?
And based on our experience, the first thing, meet one another and share your concerns. Alpha and I talked about your son and yours in that very first time we talked together. That's the first. Second, find a simple, direct way to get out on the streets doing something.
One of the activities that we engaged in, have engaged in several times, or Alpha's organized it at least 3 times, I think, a big neighborhood cleanup. And we just put the word out that on a Saturday morning, we were going to clean up the alleys, clean up the litter off the streets, get the leaves bagged, get the bushes trimmed where they needed to be trimmed. And everybody came out, and the kids joined in, and the kids felt like they were part of it, and we all met each other, and one of the households put out coffee and coffee cake out.
So you feel that the absence of community, the absence of contact,
Absolutely.
creates a climate where the drug dealers can deal.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there is no one to take space.
Well, everyone feels alone then. No one feels like it's too scary to fight it by yourself.
So you've empowered each other.
That's right.
The bottom line is that you have to be organized. I'm president of a civic association that's been in existence for about 20 years, and we have functioned on a lot of different levels with the children, the orange hats, going against some of these establishments, economic development, trying to get in positive businesses on the Georgia Avenue corridor, working with the businesses, and just getting to know everybody.
Well, given this overflow of drugs and guns and danger and fear and killing, what more could the government do to help neighbors like you?
Well, the government. Let's talk about the local government. The 4th District Police Department, which is on Georgia Avenue, they have been a very responsive and proactive organization. They have come to us, they have demonstrated to us their capability, they have communicated to us as individually and as a group what they are doing and why they are doing it. They have
we became the squeaky wheel.
Yes, we did.
And we said
And
we
they have
demand
responded.
more police presence, and we got it.
We got it.
We said we demand the trash be picked up, and we got it. We demanded the
since you
ABC board
also
take the license.
have a case of 12 police who've been dealing in drugs and drug trafficking and drug cover-up and all that, does that make people more cynical and kind of want to withdraw and not come out?
Oh, it definitely does.
But
I mean, we found when we first started trying to organize and we'd knock on doors, I would encounter people who would say, "Are you kidding? I don't even trust the police. Why should I trust you?" And people would say that to me. But over time, as we've been out there, as we've been showing that we're doing things that involve the kids, that we're doing things that represent a commitment to the neighborhood, that are improving the quality of life for everybody in the neighborhood, eventually people come around.
While you're standing up and fighting back and getting a sense of charge that we can do it, what is your comfort level for your children in this neighborhood?
Well, it's something that we think about a lot. Right now, someone who's, Alpha, you should ask Alpha, our daughter is young enough that she doesn't go out by herself. Alpha's...
I raised one daughter in this neighborhood. She's 27 years old and doing rather well. I have 2 other children, 12 and 13. They go to Tacoma School, and they go to school every day. They have some concerns, but they feel safe, they don't feel threatened, and they know their neighborhood, and they know their neighbors. So, yes, I have a concern as a parent, and so does my wife, but we have nothing else to rely on but our neighbors in this community, so we use it.
So you're using a bottom-up rather than top-down approach to fighting and taking
Bill
back.
Clinton cannot do a thing to get rid of the drugs in this neighborhood. And for me to try to sit here and whine and complain that Bill Clinton's not doing enough instead of taking the responsibility us,
But he's promised more police. He's promised more jail cells, a big budget for it. If you had
All those things help, but they don't
if
solve
you
the
had, if you had
problem.
a word with Bill Clinton, what would you say to him?
get the information to the communities on how to do the things that we have been doing. Because when people get flared up, they get excited, they get organized, at that moment, the information on how to do the things that Dean has done and that Alpha has done, that we have done, how to do it, the information on how we can do it.
But what happens in a given area where you don't have recreation for the children or jobs for the adults? I mean, couldn't he address the issue and give our youth some alternatives to doing nothing?
A few things. The first thing is that we have to listen to Janet Reno's approach. We cannot conduct the war against crime as a war against black men, because I want there to be brothers for my 2 daughters to marry. Very important. So that's the first thing. We have to take proactive approaches. The second thing, as I mentioned, I'm involved with Concerned Black Men, which is a local service organization, and we work with the children. And we find that if we get to these young brothers between around age 8 to 10, even though they may be from single family, single parent homes, we can make a difference in their lives. We can put something positive in their lives. And that's the bottom line, because we can't lock everybody up. It's not going to work. Now, obviously, there's some things I'd like to see. I'd like to see more cops on Georgia Avenue. And to be frank with you, and this may not be a popular view, if we put the National Guard 10 feet across, 10 feet apart on Georgia Avenue, I'd have no problems with that. No problems at all.
Absolutely.
Because it's ridiculous that I have to get in my car.
So even with all the work, that still is this overwhelming sense of fear. I mean, calling out the National Guard is rather
There's a
extraordinary
sense of
means.
fear on Georgia Avenue, but not within the community. We have, to be frank with you, a slice of the ghetto going through our neighborhood, but nobody's getting robbed in my community.
I'll tell you what,
Let me say, I do want to thank you for sharing this with us and really for being proactive and caring. I want to spend some time talking with the children, because in the final analysis, how this falls out on our children makes the real difference. We'll be back in a few moments to talk with some of our children from this neighborhood about how they feel about this activity.